warning you about the deep state, Obama holdover government bureaucrats who are hell-bent on destroying this president, President Trump. Tonight, it's time for the Trump administration to begin to purge these saboteurs before it's too late. That's tonight's opening monologue. Let's go back to 1861. President Abraham Lincoln, he created, a team of rivals, a so-called team of rivals, a cabinet of rivals, including adversaries that he ran against in the Republican primary. But while President Lincoln sought to unify his party through cabinet selections, he also executed an extensive government purge. He fired over 75%, nearly 1,200 people out of 1,500 bureaucrats that worked in the executive branch who President Lincoln feared could be disloyal. It's time now for President Trump to follow Abraham Lincoln's example and fire anyone and everyone who is actively working against him in government. After all, even former President Bill Clinton, he utilized this tactic back in 1993. He fired all 93 U.S. attorneys, all of them. Now, according to conservative reviews, Daniel Horowitz, sacking, imposing government employees is best utilized at the start of administration. He writes, quote, Clinton easily fired all 93 U.S. attorneys on day one. Nobody blinked an eye. Yet when Bush's attorney general fired 8 U.S. attorneys well into his second term, well, that became a national scandal. So it's very important for President Trump to act right now and not just avoid outrage from the left. That's not what this is about, because he's got to end the leaks that are plaguing this administration. Major leaks, like the ones you see right there on your screen, started just 5 days after President Trump was sworn into office. The explosion of these leaks coincides with a New York Times report that says, in his final weeks in office, President Obama revised Executive Order 12333, which allows the widespread sharing of this raw data collected by American intelligence agencies across 17 government agencies. Now, that is an additional 16 agencies and their employees who, in the final 2 weeks, when Obama was in office, who gained access to top-secret intelligence that they never had access to before. Now, we've been asking for weeks on this program, why did President Obama wait until the last minute to do this? And why didn't he apply this to himself for 8 years? Now, Congressman Duncan Hunter, he's expressing serious concern about what we see playing out. And take a look at what he said earlier today.
Overall, I think that they're dealing with seditious people within the Department of Justice, within the FBI, within the Department of Interior, within the CIA. There's people that don't approve of the Trump presidency, and I think that they're trying to take him down from the inside. That sounds kind of conspiratorial, but I think that's what Trump's looking at right now. I think you have people within the government, what you call the deep state, bureaucrats, Obama appointees, that hate Donald Trump.
And Congressman Steve King, he tweeted the following: Donald Trump needs to purge leftists from the executive branch before disloyal, illegal, and treasonous acts sink us. Now, it's important that the president begin to hear this and act now. Now, for months, deep state antagonists, they've been working overtime to try and delegitimize Donald Trump's presidency, and we have seen how low they'll go by insinuating without any evidence that there's some sort of campaign collusion with Russia. There's no evidence. It's not true. And just days ago, WikiLeaks published some very disturbing information about the CIA. According to Julian Assange, CIA operatives are able to access televisions of American citizens, smartphones, other devices, and actually record sound, images, and even encrypted messages on your iPhone or your Android. And that's not all. WikiLeaks is also alleging that the CIA has the ability to utilize very sophisticated malware that can make it appear that cyber activity is being conducted by other nations when, in fact, they, meaning those within our government, may be responsible. Now, WikiLeaks, in their press release, specifically points out that they could be doing this in the case of this Russian narrative with no evidence. And by the way, did President Obama know about any of these sophisticated spy programs developed and used by the CIA? Now, we can't confirm that any of this is actually being practiced, but we need to start asking serious questions if we want privacy in this country. Now, back in January, you may remember, I traveled to London. I interviewed Julian Assange. He told me his source repeatedly was not the Russians. You may remember this. I've asked you before. I'll ask you again today. Did Russia give you this information or anybody associated with Russia?
Our source is not a state party. So the answer for our interactions is no.
And that's not all. Former British Ambassador Craig Murray, he told the Daily Mail that the 2016 Clinton campaign email hack, it actually came from within the Democratic Party, and that the hacked information was given to him in a public park at a university right here on American property. Can you believe that? All on behalf of the Democratic Party, their own whistleblower. Now, my message tonight is simple. Every holdover from the Obama administration, they need to go. And a thorough investigation of leakers needs to be conducted. And people who have committed felonies, violated the Espionage Act, like in the case of Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, they need to be prosecuted. And all of those who aren't actively working to fix the country need to be shown the door. It's hurting a lot of people. Joining us now, editor-in-chief of LifeZette, Fox News contributor, nationally syndicated radio host, Laura Ingraham is with us, and the author of The Big Agenda, David Horowitz, is back with us. Laura, I'm looking at all of this here. We've got all of these leaks happening, which all of a sudden they just started happening when Donald Trump became president. So we politicize. Some in the intelligence community are politicized. Not all. There are a lot of good people there, but some. And look at what Lincoln did. Look at what Clinton did. Is it time for the same type of actions by President Trump?
I have to say, I was scratching my head, Sean, when I learned, and I know you were concerned about it as well, that were a number of Obama holdovers that remained behind after inauguration. Part of it was the slow pace of the transition after they showed Chris Christie the door and brought a new team in. They were behind in the appointments. Some of it was Democrats slow-walking the appointments, but they were behind on a lot of the appointments. So remember what happened in the NSA, where two of Ben Rhodes, obviously top aide to President Obama, two of his aides stayed behind in key positions at the National Security Agency.
And they left a day apart.
One was Ahmed Romana, who used to be head of Muslim Students Association back in her college days, and another was Ned Price. Both of them were donors to the Clinton campaign, it was revealed later on. So it made no sense that they were allowed to stay. That was a mistake by the Trump team. And I fear that there were other people that we're just now learning about who were political appointees, Sean, but who converted to career appointments, which is supposed to be reviewed by the personnel office, and I'm not sure it has been or hasn't been properly vetted. The Republicans should be asking answers about this on Capitol Hill. How many people converted from political appointments to career appointments to be able to stay behind at the administration? And we know at least a few of them. Gina Farrisee is one at the VA, and I believe she stayed behind, and she's still in the administration today as Deputy Chief of Staff at the VA. As
shocking as the WikiLeaks reveals were, David Horowitz, one of the things that really stood out in my mind is not only the fact that they could spy on a TV that we think is off, that there's not the privacy we think we're getting, or the encryption in our iPhones or Androids that we think we're getting, but the fact that the CIA can use stolen malware and attribute cyber attacks to other nations. And I want to know what Obama knew about what the CIA was doing, and whether or not maybe, as we're told by John Solomon and his partner Sarah Carter yesterday, there is no evidence, even though there was a FISA warrant, of any Russian collusion. Could that be an internal intelligence leak or an intelligence work that we need to be suspicious of?
First, Sean, I want to thank you. As you know, I've written several bestsellers. When Big Agenda made it to number 5 on the New York Times list, I said, oh, now I'm going to be reviewed in the New York Times and the Washington Post, and I'll be invited to panels on CNN and NBC.
Yeah, don't hold your breath.
Didn't happen, no. And that's because we're in really a civil war situation. The Democrats have adopted the slogan, resistance. That's what partisans did against the Nazis. That's not what an opposition party in a democracy does. Was Trump Tower tapped? Of course it was. The NSA collects every communication. The question is, can the raw intelligence be opened and used? And to answer that, you have to say, well, does Barack Obama or the Democratic Party, do they respect our national security laws? And the answer is obvious, no. Hillary Clinton violated the Espionage Act. She put on her private server for all of our enemies to see top classified information. There wasn't one Democrat who said, this is a bridge too far, I can't support this woman. Not one.
Let me go to the John Solomon, Sarah Carter piece, and let me tie it to WikiLeaks, Laura, if I can, because they said, in fact, that FISA warrant in October, in the middle of a presidential election, where you have a sitting president, there was surveillance going on. What he knew, what he didn't know, I don't know, but that would have had to have been approved by the Attorney General at the time, Loretta Lynch. When you put their revelation that nothing about the Russia collusion is true, nothing, that there was nothing found, but the fact that the server in the Trump organization was tapped by the government and another wiretap took place, that's kind of scary. Who knew what, when, and where needs to be asked. Not that Obama didn't order it. What did he know?
Right. Well, the tactics of a police state include targeting individuals, of course, for political purposes. So you don't base your investigations on real probable cause for any criminal violation, but it's based only on political disagreement. And if we had partisans running these investigations, so-called investigations, and if Loretta Lynch okayed this in the middle of a presidential campaign where no prior information came up that would indicate that the Russians were colluding with Paul Manafort or Carter Page or any of these other people, then you have to ask yourself this question: why was it done? Why was it done in October? Why did they keep surveilling the Trump team? And can anyone really think for a moment that Loretta Lynch would okay this and not run it by President Obama? I mean, I guess you want to keep plausible deniability, but I think that doesn't really pass the straight face test.
And what's your thoughts on this? Last word, David.
Well, we have one of the most corrupt Justice Departments for the last 8 years, collusion and all kinds of political attacks on Republicans. Who could trust Loretta Lynch? She's advocating street demonstrations by radicals who openly want to overthrow this regime. We're in a very dangerous situation, and I can't say how totally I endorse what you've been saying editorially, that they need to fire all the Democrat appointees in these departments. 99% of the Justice Department, according to Newt Gingrich, gave money to the Democrats. We know that Democrats are untrustworthy on national security.
Well,
we know it through everything that happened in the last year.
People also need to be prosecuted. Felonies were committed, numerous felonies, but we got to get to the bottom of it. All right, congrats on the book, Laura. Always good to see you. Thank you both.